All right, remember our friend Brody Miller over at The Athletic as he is covering LSU over there. He's here every Wednesday. You can follow him on Twitter at Brody A. Miller to keep up with the latest. In fact, he's got his mailbag segment over at The Athletic today. You can get in, if you're over on his Twitter account, you can get your mailbag questions in concerning LSU as they are reacting last night to LSU becoming ranked at number 6 in the latest college football playoff, with UAB on the horizon this weekend. Brody is back with us here on this Wednesday morning. Brody, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. I always appreciate your little support of The Athletic, getting mailbag references out there. Right. You're a team player.
That's right. Check should be in the mail, correct?
Yes. 6 figures, man. You know that.
Yeah. We've got agreements, Brody. Brody, your reaction last night, number 6, LSU.
Yeah, I guess in a lot of ways, kind of as you'd expect, but it's going to start getting interesting, right? Obviously, if everything goes chalk, LSU's not going to the college football playoff, and I assume everyone plans on that. But first off, just being 6 is kind of, I don't know, like actually being in that 6 spot's just jarring. Like, this is no longer a fringe good team. This is a actual, contender. And it starts getting really interesting of like, hey, personally, I love this TCU team. I think they deserve to be where they are. I do have a gut feeling they lose either to Baylor or in the Big 12 title game. So let's say hypothetically TCU loses. And I genuinely think USC loses to either UCLA. I think they should be a dog against UCLA. Yeah. And they play Notre Dame, who's figuring a lot of stuff out. It's like I genuinely think they lose one of these last 2 to 3. And it's like all of a sudden, if that happens and LSU hypothetically does beat Georgia, which I don't think any of us expect, but if they do, it's like, are we actually looking at a 3 SEC team playoff? Like, that is genuinely in the cards now. In that scenario, it comes down to either do they put both Ohio State and Michigan in, or 3 SEC teams? So, and I know this is all far-fetched and kind of extreme, but it's just kind of crazy how the roadmap is there for a team that just a month ago felt like they were really struggling.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. It is wild to even say out loud. It's wilder to say out loud that LSU has secured their Western Division championship with a couple of weeks left here in the regular season, Brody. I mean, I guess this would be very similar to the answer you just gave me, but I mean, here we are, and where we have been in discussing this team, and now they're the league champs on the Western Division side. What do you make of that story?
Yeah, it's. I think it's worth like taking a step back, right? I'm sure you've done this plenty on the show too. Of like, I'm curious your thoughts on this, but 2019 is such like a meteor that like it doesn't even feel like it's baked into like the actual like year to year what is LSU football. Like, it is just its own bizarre, holy crap, that's the best team ever kind of thing that just came together perfectly. And I mean, enjoy the heck out of that. But like, it doesn't even feel part of the last 12 years of LSU football in a lot of ways. And so if you like view it that way, and I know a lot of LSU fans who do, a few commenters in The Athletic do, if you do, it's like LSU hasn't won the West since 2011, other than 19. LSU hasn't won 10 games in a regular season since 12, other than 2019, which kind of broke my brain because in our head, we always think of LSU as this top 10, 15 team, and they are, and they have been. But like, putting that context in and realizing, wait, if LSU takes care of business, this will be their best non-2019 regular season in 11 years or 10 years. And I think it is really worth kind of enjoying that and stepping back because this is rare. And I think what famed athletic commenter Catherine B put so well, I think after the Bama win, was like, because 2019 was such a meteor, that Bama win and this West title, that feels more gratifying to a lot of fans because it feels more grounded in reality. Like, not like that's fake, but you know what I mean? Like, it's earned. It's like, it's not, hey, you had this one great team. It's like, you were just better than them. You just figured it out and found a way to beat Bama and all that without like your perfect team. So, and it's going to be the worst Kelly team in theory that you will have. I mean, yeah, I just think it's worth kind of taking that moment in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think the message to the league is that LSU is sending? I mean, kind of, not that you're in every market, but I mean, if you're out there, I mean, you're thinking, wow, LSU really got it right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the general vibe of most fan bases I've gathered is kind of just like, okay, it's been this long-term thing, right? It's like, okay, if Brian Kelly gets that going, that's going to be really interesting, but I wonder. And now you're just kind of, I think the most people across the country are like, okay, it's time to really take notice. It's time to really be like, this team's gonna, I don't know. And I think it's even more worth focusing for a lot of fan bases, I think, on the recruiting class. It's like, first off, this season is incredible, and it does kind of show you like, man, he can really make a lot out of not that much. But then to be like, okay, but how's recruiting going to do? And now to be, wait, it's number 4 class in the country. There's a genuine roadmap to landing 2 more top 50 corners and finishing like 2nd or 3rd in the country. And it's like, no part of me thought they had any chance of landing a class that good, with Brian Kelly, let alone year 1. And I think that's where it's like, oh crap, they might actually have an ability to really get this thing rolling. And you wiped up my mailbag. One of the best questions I got this week is like, what's the reasonable expectation of what LSU should be post Saban? And I think it's such an interesting discussion. I haven't figured out my exact answer, but like the roadmap is there that I am not saying you should be what Georgia is now. That's probably unfair, but like post Saban, the roadmap is there that LSU should be consistently the top 2 teams in the West, going to the playoff, I don't know, every 2 to 3 years. And that's success, I think, to Scott Woodward and LSU, right?
Yeah, without question. I think you're right. Matt House, do you get an idea of what his ceiling is, what his personal – does he want to get back to the NFL and be a defensive coordinator there, or does he want to be a head coach ultimately? Because it seems like he's kind of controlling his destiny right now.
Yeah, his stock could not be higher, right? And his resume, his CV is so good because he does have, multiple boxes checked. He's proven that he can do it at a not smaller, but less, talented place at UK. Now he's proving he can do it here, and he has the NFL experience of being like, hey, I know that world. It's not going to be new to me, all that. I will not pretend I have insight to what his literal thinking is, but I do think there's a lot of guys that when you are a football guy, you do kind of want to maybe sometimes be in the NFL. And it was reported, Mark Stoops spoke openly about it when he left after that great 17 season, that like, some guys don't want to just like live that nonstop recruiting life and that be your whole life. So I'm just speculating, and I hate even throwing this out there, but it's just like, yeah, I wonder if he got some great NFL DC offer, that might be a happier life for him. And it's too early to probably play that game, and I don't want to like put words in his mouth, but I could totally see that. Like, Joe Brady's not a stat similar of a comp for him, but like that line of thinking is just, it's more normal than people realize.
You have covered a lot of LSU football. You've seen a lot of great players. Where does Harold Perkins' performance last Saturday rank, and what do we do now with him? How is he viewed? Is he a legit, is he the best defensive player in college football? Is he in that discussion?
We're getting there, man. Right, it's wild. Like It's tricky. Well, first off, where do you go with him? You play him at running back too. What are you doing? You've seen his stats in high school. But yeah, I'm not going to go as far as calling him like one of the 2 or 3 best players just at this moment, just because like there is the fact that like if he's not quite ready to do like all of the mental stuff yet, that's baked into it. But if you're talking just literal ability to make an impact right now, yeah, I think Jalen Carter is the best defensive player. I think that's fair. Is Harold Perkins second? In terms of just literal impact right now, is Harold Perkins first? It's crazy. And I am glad that I believe Cobble asked it, or was it Moscona? I forget. And Kelly gave a great insight answer of like what Perkins was able to do was also because Roy, Ojulari, all those guys, were able to flush Mekhi Wingo, flush them out, play so well, and then it sets it up. And it's almost like, and that got me thinking like, man, this is common sense, but they win that Florida State game with Harold Perkins, right? Because what was the problem with that game? They got a great pass rush against Florida State. They actually did. They just couldn't bring Travis down. It's like, oh, wait, Perkins is literally like a robot built to just finish a good pass rush almost. Like he's like that third line of defense that just can win any situation. And yeah, his upside is scary. I prompted the poll question, I think you did too, of like, where does he rank in the LSU freshman? And it's like, I don't know, because Stingley was borderline perfect. Yeah. Like Stingley was the best corner in college football as a freshman, and it wasn't just like you just do this. He was covering the best receiver on every team. But his wasn't as flashy. Tyrann Mathieu, I think his sophomore year is so special that people forget how good his freshman year is. I don't know the answer, and I guess who cares? But it's jarring just how much he is of a different planet. He is literally, what he does not feel comparable to who he's up against.
Should there be concern of the blueprint that Barry Odom put out on Saturday of LSU's offense? It looked like that will probably be what they run into for the rest of the year.
It's possible. Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to go like full throttle like that. And also, I always say it's one thing to be able to like say you want to do that. What Odom did was also complicated too. Like it wasn't just I'm dropping 8 and there you go beat me. Because if that's what it was, Jane Daniels could go run, or else you could just pound the ball and run for 300 yards. It was a really smart scheme. Barry Odom, I mean, shoot, there's a reason LSU wanted to hire him in 21. Like Barry Odom's the best, and he was really good at like, okay, I'm only rushing 3, but I have like they had like 2 QB spies and Poole and Sanders like both waiting for him, but you're also cutting off the shallow end. It was kind of like House against Mississippi State, where like you're dropping 8, but you're also sending pressure in all the time, so there's no like tendency to hone in on. So I say all that to say, like, I don't know if it's just as simple as here's what Barry Odom did, let's do it. But yes, like I think it's valid that what is the one thing we're 10 weeks in fair to criticize Jane Daniels is sometimes he gets indecisive sometimes, and clogging passing lanes seems like the best way to do that. But you also are leaving up the opening of, if you do that too much, he can run for 250 yards alone on you. So you have to be smart enough to put it all together. You have to have the D-line personnel to put it all together. So I think Georgia probably in a lot of ways is like a terrible, terrible matchup for LSU's offense. And it is for everyone. But like that could be a nightmare. But yeah, I'm really interested to see what A&M wants to do against LSU, because, you know, A&M's defense is not what you'd expect it to be. But do they try to do something similar?
What have you made of covering Josh Williams and the player that he has turned into and the responsibility he has now on this team? It looks like they count on him in very high pressure situations, and he is rewarding them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I always go back to like when Kyle Kasky early 2021, and before the season even started, I remember him saying like, that guy's an NFL running back. I don't know why like they don't want to play him more. And shout out to him, because he kind of nailed that. And it's like, and I have a story coming out on this in the next week or so of like, he got on the field because he was a great pass protector. He was the guy they could trust. And by the way, that Kelly gave such a good answer on like what all goes into that and why that's more complicated than just can you block a guy. And that's why John Emery wasn't on the field early in his career. There's so many guys like that you think you just are some star running back and there's more that goes into it. But what you give Josh Williams credit for is like he is way more than that. Even the first like 5 weeks, it felt like he was the short yardage guy. He was the guy, it's like, you need to convert a 3rd and 2. He's going to inch your way to it. Mm-hmm. And now, man, each week it's like he breaks another 25-yard run. He makes 3 guys miss in a way you didn't expect before. He is a complete running back. And to your point of like what he means to the team, there's a reason he is the one guarantee to come talk to the media like every single post game, and most like Tuesdays. They bring him because he's the guy, and you've covered a lot of guys like this. There's always the one guy you want to like talk to about the team. You know, it's not just like the running back stuff. It's like, what's going on with Jaden? What's going on with Kayshawn? Like the defense, like he can just talk about that all. And that's probably who he is in the locker room too. So he is it's like, I don't know, like talking MVP stuff, who cares? It's exhausting. But like in a lot of ways, he is the underrated MVP of this entire season.
I agree wholeheartedly. What do you make of this weekend, the line? This is a funky number, and it's UAB coming into town with LSU favored by 2 scores here. I was asking Jacques in hour number 1 if he anticipated seeing Walker Howard with that point spread. That would be an overwhelming no. What do you think of this Saturday?
Yeah, it's a tricky line, right? Because 14.5 I think I've seen, and like I think it's worth remembering that last week did remind us, as much as this season is incredible, this LSU team, even though they're number 6, and they've earned it, because there's a difference between earned, but also like that's why I love predictive analytics. It's like, yeah, you've earned to be number 6. Doesn't mean you're actually the 6th best team in reality. Like they're 2 different things. And like LSU is a flawed team. They proved that. Like Jaden Daniels isn't there yet. This offense isn't there yet. There's a lot of stuff that's still getting figured out. So like, and by the way, that's a good thing. Like that should be more impressive to what the season is. Enjoy that. Like this team isn't that amazing yet. And they're still doing all this. But yeah, like they are vulnerable, and UAB is better than a lot of people realize. Like I know Bill Clark's not there anymore, and he's been such a good coach for so long, but it's still kind of Bill Clark's team, and they are tough. They don't make mistakes. They have a really good offensive scheme. I think they're like number 2 nationally in rushing explosiveness, like those big running plays on the ground. You know, Kelly talked about their great running back. It's a game LSU should win by 2 or 3 scores. Yes, I do, but I do not think this will be a blowout. 1, because LSU hasn't really proven they can be like that. I just go take care of business and win by 35 team. They're not. And 2, UAB is better than people realize. And you're kind of not look ahead. It's not a trap, but just like this isn't an SEC game. It's easy not to get up for it. So there's a lot of reasons to kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't bet. I'm not saying I'd bet UAB, but I also would not be laying 14.5.
You alluded to it a little bit earlier in the conversation. I'll get you out of here on this one. The game is going to happen. It's weeks away, but LSU is going to go to Atlanta and face Georgia. It feels like it's going to be a steep, steep mountain to climb for LSU to overcome that. How do you see that game? What's the percentage chances that LSU can really compete there?
Percentage, that's tough. Like I think on the LSU offense versus Georgia defense, it's just probably going to be a tough game. And like Georgia's defense does that to everyone, and LSU's offense has made such growth, but they're still a work in progress. And it's tough. Like, okay, LSU's O-line deserves so much credit. They've become good. They lose that battle to Georgia's D-line. No disrespect to them, you'd probably do. And, Jaden, who's the we saw Georgia against Tennessee. It was the only team in the country able to like match up with those receivers and just like actually win those battles. Well, they're going to be able to do that against LSU. They're going to be able to neutralize Jaden Daniels with their absurd athleticism and strength on the line and all that. So I really don't like it on that side. I think LSU's best chance, like if you want to put it in like the 20% zone, is LSU's D can match up. Like Georgia's offense isn't some exotic thing. Like it's kind of body to body a little bit. It's do your job, and LSU's defense is proven capable of doing that. So I think their chance is to kind of muddy this game up, to make it a tough, maybe like the first 3 quarters of the Bama game, right? Like a tough, ugly, gritty game, and then you're in it and you have Jaden Daniels in a 4th quarter. I think that's your best chance.
Brody, have a good rest of the week, man. Thanks for the information as always.
Thanks as always, guys. Take care.
Brody Miller checking in from The Athletic. Make sure and subscribe today. If you have not subscribed, you can follow him on Twitter at Brody A. Miller to keep up with all of what's coming out there over at The Athletic. We'll be back with more of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. We're going to take your voicemail. We're going to take your phone calls. We're going to take your questions. Jump inside of the chat. Blow up the phone number. Leave a voicemail. Shoot a text in, 225-229-7741. Your questions next here on the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.